Welcome to the Etsy Conversations podcast, featuring inspiring interviews with Etsy shop owners, hosted by Ijama Elazu.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Etsy Conversations podcast. I'm your host, Ijama, and I thank you for joining me this week. My guest this week is Olga Minevich, and she runs the Etsy shop Vera The Label. And she's doing something in her Etsy shop that I've never had another guest on the podcast who does this. So I'm really excited because this is brand new for me, obviously not brand new for her. And so I'm really looking forward to our conversation. Olga, thank you so much for being my guest and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Ijama. It's I'm so happy to be here. I'm really excited and looking forward to our discussion.
Well, I'm so glad to have you. And I'll just tell everyone why now, because I've never had anyone on the podcast who has their own clothing line. And when we first started talking, like I told you, initially I thought, oh, okay, she's picking up clothes, vintage clothing, and curating styles from, a thrift store or what have you, and then reselling them. But no, that's not what you're doing at all.
Mm-mm.
Can you tell us specifically what you do?
Yes. So we are a clothing brand. We're a clothing line, and we create our own designs, and we produce on our own. We have a small team, but a very big vision. We're still a startup. But yeah, so we don't do vintage. We don't do secondhand. We are full on clothing brand that's geared towards all women all over the world. And we're really excited to be on Etsy. Etsy has been a really great experience for us.
So Olga, what do you think makes your line of clothing different from other clothing lines?
Yeah, so we really think a lot about including everybody. And our team comes from all different cultures, all different religions, kind of different countries as well. And we wanted to combine something that's geared towards everybody, where we bring on the individuality and yet modesty, and then for anybody who is more business savvy to have clothing that they could wear to work, or maybe more so for moms at home that want to keep stylish and comfortable. So, and also, of course, we take into consideration body types. We want everybody to be able to benefit from our line, because that's a really important aspect, being inclusive to all, whether it's a size, even gender, or religion and culture. That's really important to us because, again, we are a small team made out of all different types. And so that was really important for us. And so we want to bring that. We want to bring high quality. We want to bring a bit of modesty and more importantly, personal style and individuality and affordability. That's also very important to us.
Yeah. I have to say, when I was reading just about your line and your brand, everything, one of the words that did stand out to me was modesty, because nowadays, how do I put this without nowadays
not that's very modest.
Sorry, what?
The world is not very modest.
Yeah, exactly. That's not a word that you will associate with a lot of styles. Or modern styles, I should say. I mean, yes, you can definitely buy modest clothing. And to me, it stood out that you used that particular word to describe the style of clothing you wear, because when I first looked at it, I thought, yes, the clothing looks very fashionable. There's a distinct style to it, but there was also something different about it. And I just felt like there was a particular thought process that went into the style of clothing that you were developing.
Yeah, so we again, because we come from all different worlds, we wanted to
Mm-hmm.
create something that's beneficial for everybody. And we're not against, we're kind of for modern modesty, meaning
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
if you want to be modest, we have we've created a line that represents just that, because modesty is being fashionable, is being stylish, is being comfortable, is being comfortable in your own skin.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was kind of the idea from the beginning. And when you look at our clothing, the interesting thing about Etsy is that I would say when we review the analytics, I would say probably 60 or maybe even 70% are general public, meaning they're our audience that wouldn't be considered modest per se, but they really enjoy our clothing.
Right.
And then there's that 30% that really does come to our shop specifically for modest clothing.
Interesting.
Yeah, and so that's why I actually really enjoy Etsy's, because we are able to not just take into not just target modest audience, but also the general public. And it seems like the good thing is, it seems like modesty is still hip and cool,
Yeah.
even with the general public.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned you have a team. What's your role in the team over at Vera the Label?
So I'm one of the founders,
Okay.
and I am more my role has changed a bit, and I'm more on the operational side of things, customer service, kind of making sure that everything is run smoothly. I also have a background in finance. And so that was kind of originally, although I was, I work with our designer and our production manager and a photographer, I kind of like mingle in everything.
Mm-hmm.
I mostly now that things are running more smoothly, again, because we are a startup. We just started this. We actually launched the brand Thanksgiving of 2020, and that was a whole different experience with COVID and everything. But on Etsy, we are started in February of 2021. So my role has kind of shifted more onto the customer service and speaking with clients, and kind of on that operations, customer service, HR end of things.
Okay. So when you say you launched initially Thanksgiving 2020, were you selling outside of Etsy?
Yes, we were and we are.
Okay.
But the concentration, it was a really interesting thing. So Etsy was never part of the plan.
Huh.
Because I actually was never, to be frank, I never experienced Etsy. I was never an Etsy buyer. A lot of my friends were. And then everybody started telling me, go on Etsy, go on Etsy, go on Etsy. And I said, what is Etsy? And so I decided to do my research, and I did a lot of it. And because I also have a marketing background, we have a marketing agency, I decided to experiment with Etsy, because it's all about the SEO and the keywords and the taglines and so on and so forth. Let me just put a few items on. Let me just see how it works. And it took off. It took off, and I'm thankful for all the people who kind of pushed us to go towards Etsy.
Yeah.
It's been a really, really great experience for us personally. And I think Etsy is really geared towards individual sellers and smaller businesses. And I think if you do it right, and if you do enough research, I think it works really well.
Yeah. And just to be clear, like you said, Etsy, originally did start off being geared towards individual sellers and small businesses. But what you're doing is also in line with what Etsy, what people come to Etsy for and sell on Etsy for is you come up with you have your own designs and you make it it's
Everything is
all,
our own.
yeah, it's not. And just in case anyone is listening and thinks perhaps, because there has been an influx of people selling things that really don't fit into what you're supposed to do on Etsy, that's not you guys, because
No, no, no.
these are your designs. These are made
These are
by your team, which, you are allowed to have.
absolutely,
Everybody on your team is listed. Your designer is listed, the person who
absolutely.
makes and everything. So just in case
Yes.
anyone is wondering if you're some big factory selling on Etsy, you are not, just to be clear.
Yes, no, no, no. We're definitely, and that's partly why we were kind of geared towards Etsy's, because we do handmade and we do our own
Mhm.
designs, and it's all our sweat and tears and
Mhm.
all nighters. I feel like I'm back in college. So yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's all ours.
So how does your team work together when it comes to coming up with designs? I know you have a designated designer, but do you
Mhm.
have team input as a whole on what direction you're going to go with designs, and then um like how does it work behind the scenes, I guess is what I'm trying to ask.
Yeah. So we, again, although we have a designer and somebody who sews, and me on the operational side more now, we all work together to try. So the designer comes up with the design and says this would be really great. Of course, we follow trends. We see what's happening. For example, we're now preparing for our winter season. We're following what's going to be hot
Mm.
during winter, and then we talk about it. And what we do, and again, I want to point out for why Etsy is so good for us, is because Etsy is very experimental for us.
Mhm.
So meaning, I'll give you a perfect example. We created this eyelet dress, and we weren't sure if it was going to sell, and so we just made it, obviously just a handful of them, and we just said, okay, let's just see how it goes, and it sold out.
Hmm.
And so we understood, okay, this is a good design. People like this. So we are slowly trying to make more because we ran out of them.
Yeah.
Um, so it's kind of like that. So it's more experimental. Some of the things that we put on, we're like, okay, let's see how it works. Some things don't sell, and we don't really know why. But then there's others that are our best sellers. Like we have about I would say like 10, 15 items that are bestsellers, and we recreate them all the time. So we know these are the things that work really well.
Mm.
And so we work together to see, obviously each person has their individual work set out for them, but
Mhm.
we always discuss everything, even when we do photo shoots, as much as, we have a photographer who is phenomenal and she's very experienced, but sometimes we'll be like, maybe we can do it like this or like that. So
Mm.
we're a small team. We're tiny.
Yeah.
So for us, we work together just to kind of create everything all at once. So it's more of a together kind of effort. And
Okay.
then we see what works.
So regarding you said there was a dress that you came out with and then it ran out. How do you figure out how much of each style or each design to keep on hand, or do you make everything to order?
So we don't make it to order, and I'll tell you why.
Okay.
It's our long-term goal is to be able to customize things.
Mm.
Unfortunately, we just don't have, and I always say the woman power, because we're just too small. And so for us to actually be profitable, we really have to right now just we make it and we sell it. Uh,
Mm.
in order for us to customize things, we would not, we right now we're too small
Yeah.
uh, for us to make it a profitable business. So we
Okay.
make a certain amount. Usually in the beginning, if it's a new design, we make just a few just to see if it works.
Okay.
And then if it does work, if it's selling or it has sold out, or we see that it's going to sell out, then we try to make more. But it also depends on the season. Again, those dresses that
Mm.
I mentioned, they're summer dresses. And so it's not that, we're gearing towards the winter. So we're trying to kind of create new designs and things that are going
Oh,
to
right.
go for the winter. because if we're going to spend our time to recreate dresses for the summer, it's not going to sell because the season is over.
Yeah. So then do you make just a fixed amount in each size?
So that's another thing that we work with. We kind of, a lot of our things, because they're geared towards modesty, they're a little bit oversized. Right. So nothing is ever, huggy per se. Mm-hmm. But so it depends on the design. It depends on the style of clothing. So for example, we have tunics that are one size. Because anybody from a small to a large can wear it. And a lot of times we make like a small or a medium, and then on the description we say A, what the actual size is, and B, a lot of the times somebody who is like a medium can wear a medium and a small, or a medium and a large, depending on the specific design. Yeah. So yes, we do make all different. But it depends on the design and what we're making. For example, blazers we make fit to the body because that's an important aspect, right? So we have a small, a medium, a large, and usually an extra large. Mm-hmm. But with dresses, we tend to make just from the small to the large because they're not specifically tight to the body. They can be manipulated and for different body types.
Okay. Okay, that makes sense. So, now you're more on the operations side. How do you, or are you also responsible for social media, or do you have somebody else who handles that?
We have yet, I know it's shocking, but we have yet to go into the social media for Etsy. We've opened up accounts, and I'll be completely frank with you. Social media is a beast of its own. Yes. And for Etsy, I would highly recommend everybody do social media. However, I always say take one step at a time. And so for us, we are just now gearing towards opening up our account. So we opened up social media accounts, but we're not very active on them. Mm-hmm. And one thing that I have learned is that, for example, we opened up Instagram, and so we are not very active on it yet, but we are strategizing on what to do on Instagram, because I don't know if you know, but Instagram is no longer kind of like a photo app. It's now they're pushing reels. Yeah. And so because we are small, because there's so little time in the day, we need to create videos, and those are a little bit more difficult and time consuming to create. At the same time, we don't want to create something that's not going to go anywhere. So we're strategizing on how to do that. But for clothing brands, I more so recommend Pinterest, which we opened up the account. We're active, but not super active. So I will say that for Etsy, for our shop, we are slowly gearing towards being active on social media platforms. We're just not fully there yet.
And that makes total sense, especially for small businesses. Like social media, like you said, is its own beast. It takes time. When you get into social media, one just needs to realize that's going to be time away from the business. And, right now I am of the mindset that, first things first, let's get our products in line. Let's get them up and out there and available before, anything else, because that's your moneymaker, is your actual product. Interestingly enough, I got an email yesterday from someone who is selling a course about how to leave social media completely and only use marketing methods that don't involve social media. And the theory that this person is going based upon is that, well, before social media, people were still doing marketing and making sales and having successful businesses. So we should still be able to do it right now. I don't know. I mean, times have changed.
I would respectfully disagree with that. You kind of have to go with the trend, and you kind of have to go with the current times, and social media is definitely in current times.
Yes.
So,
that was my
and
thought
it is
too. I was like,
working.
it sounds nice to say I'm leaving social media for personal reasons. Yes, I can understand that. But I don't know, I kind of feel like the way business is run today kind of need to have some sort of presence somewhere.
Absolutely, 100%. But as you said, the first thing is setting up the shop and
Yeah.
setting the shop correctly and properly,
Yeah.
and being able to see that you're getting traction, and you're getting
Mm-hmm.
sales, and people are interested, and people are favoring it. And then once you kind of get that going, and that's where I feel like we're at now, where we're like, okay, we have good reviews, we have strong target audience, people are interested, we have buyers that are rebuying, coming
Mm-hmm.
back to our shop and buying new things. So we know, okay, we have something here,
Yeah.
we have something interesting, we have something good here. So now we can transition and spend some more time on the social media
Yeah.
aspect of it. But before we get to social media, for anybody who is, wanting to do Etsy shop, you have to get it first set up.
Yeah. Yes. And for sure, like Olga did, lock down your accounts, like, get your branding together, get your
Mm-hmm.
handles. Then when you're ready, then you can branch out. And I want to ask about what a day at Vera the Label looks like, how you manage your time, and what's involved in every day. But before that, why Vera the Label? Where did the name come from?
Oh, it's so Vera is my cat. And it's so funny. So I actually took a course before we opened up the Etsy shop. I took a course, and her name was Nancy Badillo, I think.
Oh,
And it was like a master
yes.
course. Yeah, she's wonderful. She's really
Yes.
great, and I really enjoy her course. It's a master course, and I learned a lot about it. And one of the things that she was talking about is the name. And I always say, be efficient with anything and everything that you do. And at first, we started thinking about the name, and we spent like days and days. And then I was like, wait a minute, hold on. Like, it's the name. The only thing that's important is for people to understand that it's some sort of a boutique, some sort of clothing, some sort of something. And then our cat, who she's a little bit over one. We've named her Vera, and she's just feisty and individual and sweet and modest in a way, and yet
Mhm.
she can be fun and playful, and she's just all of these personalities that we really, really, we looked at her and we were like, what about Vera the Label? Because it kind of combines of what we look for within our clothing line. We kind of want women to represent themselves regardless of the type of personalities they are. We want them to wear our clothing and feel comfortable and
Yeah.
feel personalized and individualized with the clothes that they're buying, with their
Yeah.
our clothing line. And so that's how we came up. Sometimes you don't have to think too hard. Sometimes you don't have to analyze too much. Just kind of
Yes.
look around and be like, oh, this is it. And so we came up with that.
Yes, I love it. Yes, because I've been there too, where I've agonized over a name that in the end didn't even matter. Didn't make a single difference. And then I hear stories like yours where it's like, yeah, the cat just walked by and I thought, I'll name this after my cat. Well, I mean, that's not exactly your story, but yes, something like that.
Yeah,
And it just works.
it does. It just works because she's she has all the personalities in one, and I loved it, and I was like, this is what we want. And so
Yeah.
and most people wouldn't even know that, and they will just see Vera the Label,
Yeah.
and they will understand that it's some sort of boutique, which is kind of what the
Yep.
point is anyways.
Yes, exactly. Okay, so what does a day in the life of Vera the Label, the brand, look like? I'm picturing you guys sitting in a war room discussing, the looks for the fall or the winter, and then somebody is sketching out designs and somebody else is talking about
You got it.
marketing. Is it? Is that
Got it.
right?
That's really what it is. I mean, a lot of it is actually done on the phone or on
Mm.
FaceTime or on Zoom, or kind of Yeah, we're always talking, or WhatsApp, we're always texting, sending pictures, sending photos. What do you think about this? What do you think about that? So yes, it's just, there's, I can't say there's a specific time where we like don't talk about Vera the Label. We are always talking about our clothing. We're always talking about the things that we want to do, what we can do. We're strategizing for the winter. We're strategizing for social media. We're strategizing for the designs. Is this going to work? Is this not going to work? Who can we try this on? What kind of material? I mean, there's no specific time frame. The only thing that I have to say, and I don't know, to mention or not, but just a few days ago, you probably know this, that on Etsy, this whole star Cellar new thing came up. And the reason I mention this is because a lot of sellers tend to be frustrated with it because there's a lot of discrepancies within this kind of batch that they're trying to do. And with timing, what I tend to do is in the morning, I respond to all of the messages. But if I don't respond to all of the messages, with the star seller, you only have 24 hours to respond. So now I really have to organize my time to be able to respond to all of the clients and customers.
Yeah.
And if I don't do it within 24 hours, then we get penalized for it. So that's just something like just an FYI for whoever is listening.
Yeah.
That's a really important one. And so I try to allocate my time. A lot of it is in the morning because we also have full-time jobs. This is kind of our baby, our startup. But we try to do a lot of the things in the morning so we can concentrate on other things in the afternoon. But allocation of time is probably the key to getting things accomplished, because even though we're talking about things throughout the day, the things that are important, we have a list of things that we need to get done. And so we go by it every single day. We write things that need to be accomplished. Once we accomplish those things, then we say, okay, then we can talk about something else. But until we get those things done, we don't talk about anything else. So time allocation, you're right, it's so important. And we try to do that in the morning. But it works differently for different people. So for us, it works in the morning. Again, we have other priorities as well.
Yeah.
But that's how we.
And I imagine it helps when at the beginning of the day, everyone kind of has their walking papers for what their responsibilities are regarding Vera the Label. So then each person can incorporate that into their day based on other things that you have going on. And just as long as everyone gets what they need to get done, we're on track.
Exactly. It's twice a week we have a meeting. And everybody, one of the people takes notes and we figure out who does what, and then we follow that throughout the week. And so it's very important just to stay organized, no matter how small or how big your shop is or business in general.
Yeah. You mentioned the Star Seller program, which, yes, at the time we're recording this, the email came out, I want to say earlier this week. It's very brand new, but at the time you're listening to this, it would have been out for almost 3 weeks, almost a month. And yes, with the messaging thing, so I sell on eBay as well, and eBay has actually been doing this for many years already. So when I got the email, I was like, okay, I get what we're doing here. It's okay. But it just so happened that yesterday I was communicating with a buyer of mine in one of my Etsy shops, and so I was responding in real time because I was available and we were having a conversation. And then the last message the buyer sent was, thank you, kind of was just, a wrap up like, thank you, can't wait, okay, bye. And I thought, and I really struggled with myself. I'm like, should I respond to her thank you? Because I don't want Etsy to think that I didn't respond, and then time goes by and they're like, oh, you did not respond. I'm like, it's a thank you, and I said thank you first, and then she said thank you after. Do I say you're welcome? And then I was like, it's kind of maddening.
What I thought, so I had a different impression. I thought that the response was to the first message you receive.
Which would make sense.
Right? I'm not sure, because I actually wrote to Etsy because they have a feedback that, the sellers can do a feedback, because they're trying to figure out like what's working, what's not working. So some of the things, for example, we had a few local drop-offs, but they're considering, because there's no tracking number, they're considering that that's a negative. And so I reached out to them and said, hey, this is a local pickup, so there's obviously no tracking number.
Yeah.
And then with the messages, sometimes you can't answer within 24 hours. And sometimes those messages are completely useless, and they're not for a client or a customer. It's a spam. So do I respond to a spam? That's not a good thing.
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know. I know there was a time, like it was sometime last year, they were doing some beta testing, which, sometimes they do these things and not everybody sees it, and some people see it. And I know I was seeing it, where on people's shops, and I can't remember exactly where it was showing up, there would be a banner or a message saying responds within 24 hours, or usually responds within a specific amount of time, and it would list it there. And I guess that should have been a trigger that this was kind of where they were going with that, because yes, buyers don't want to wait forever for an answer, but sometimes some things take a while, like if you have to do some work to get the answer. So, I figured the best thing would be and I would imagine they're tracking this for your interaction with your customers, not necessarily just people asking general questions like, does this come in pink? Which...
No, I think they do.
Oh, it's for everything.
That's the problem. It's for everything. And so a lot of the times, you see a message and it's not something urgent, and you don't have time. You rather not respond until you get to your, as we just spoke about, allocated time where you answer to messages. And but now I tend to interrupt my day to answer to messages, because I fear that we will be penalized for not responding on time. So, but I truly believe that they're working on it. And I think a lot of the feedback that they're getting from the sellers, I think they will adjust it accordingly, hopefully.
Well, Olga, I feel like I'm such an underachiever, because there's a part of me that thought, okay, don't even try to get it, so that if you get it and you lose it, you won't feel bad. So just continue being yourself. If that's some level above mediocrity, that's okay, as long as you get good reviews and people can read your reviews. Well, because it's kind of stressful, this star seller thing.
Oh, I'm so with you 100%. But with the reviews as well, what happens, I never go harshly towards my clients or my customers and try to get a review. No, I ask once. If they don't respond, then that's it. I don't go after them. But what happens a lot of the times is that, and this happened to me a couple of times, where the customers accidentally left 4-star review but wrote amazing review on the bottom. And so it was just an accident. And so I would reach out. I used to not reach out to them and be like, hey, can you change it to a 5? Because I can see that, you really love the product or the item. But I'm going to do that now, because it's one of the star seller things. And so if, obviously back in the day where I see a 4, but then the review is written, that this is the best item ever. Obviously I would be like, okay, they made a mistake. But now I'm forced to reach out to them and say, hey, was this an accident?
Yeah. And I think that's totally valid. I've done that before, where somebody, and I know I've talked about this before on the podcast, so I won't go into too much detail, where someone left a review that wasn't about how do I explain it? It didn't really have to do with my service or the product itself. It was more about their experience and what they had expected and not. And I read it and I reread it and I thought, well, that doesn't really have anything to do with me or the product. And so I private messaged the buyer and I said, hey, would you mind I said, you can leave everything you said. I don't mind what you said because you were talking about your experience using the product. But just, I don't know if you're aware, but the star rating you give reflects on me as a seller. And, at first glance, people might think because of that star rate, I think she gave two stars or something like that. I said, at first glance, people might think that it had something to do with me, but if they go on to read what you said, it really was about your experience. That would you mind just increasing the star level? I didn't say, go to 4 or 5. I said, can you just increase it? And she was like, oh my goodness, no, I had a good experience with you. It was me I was talking about. I was like, oh yeah. So then she actually did change it to 5. And that's the only time I've ever reached out to anyone because I felt like that really looked bad at first glance if somebody didn't take the time to actually read what she was saying.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see how it goes. I think they'll adjust it. But one funny thing to mention is, as I'm still, although we've been on Etsy since February, I still consider myself relatively new, and so I'm like a sponge trying to figure out all the information, what's going on, what are the new things. And I've joined a couple of Etsy Facebook groups, and a lot of them vent about these reviews. And the thing about reviews, and thankfully we haven't had any such experiences as other sellers, but some of the reviews are just so ridiculous and have nothing to do with the seller, and it's just an annoyance of a buyer. And so I'm not sure if that's something that the star seller should really be concentrating on reviews that are not valid or that have nothing to do with their business.
Right. Which is why, like you said, the impetus is now going to be on us as sellers to follow up on those. Make sure if it really had nothing to do with you as a seller or your service and your product, then, and not every buyer is going to be reasonable, but it's worth it to try. I think the reason this lady changed it was because she's actually a repeat buyer. So she's familiar with me and I guess just didn't realize what the review and the star rating really meant. But yeah, we're going to have to do a bit more on the customer service side, which is evident from this from this whole star seller thing is they want us to provide and Etsy has been saying harping on customer service, but I guess this is a way to ensure that buyers sellers really pay attention to that.
And don't get me wrong, I think customer service is key to a successful business. I really do. I think it's very important. At the same time, there are some buyers who are just never satisfied or who are realizing that they can leave a bad review, are abusing the system. So there's some of that as well. So as much as I consider customer service to be, again, very important to a successful business, Etsy has to realize that there are various buyers who are not so nice and abuse the system, the review system.
Yeah. Now, Olga, how do you determine the price of your products?
Boy, it is a very long road of calculations. So I don't look at competition. We really calculate from the fabric to the time, to how long it takes, to the difficulty of the design, and that's how we kind of determine the pricing, the type of fabric, the design, the difficulty of it, and the time that it takes to do. Because if it's very detail oriented, of course, it's going to be more costly.
Yeah.
And if it's something that's much easier, then we try to be very fair. That's another thing that's very important to us. So like it's two things: is quality and affordability are things that we really are very keen on, and we think that it's kind of vital to our business. Besides, obviously, the actual designs, but yeah. So we never really look at our competitors because we have original designs. And so that would be kind of useless. And at the same time, we're looking for profitability for us as well. So we want to make sure that we are, making money. That's kind of that's kind of an important aspect to a business. At the same time, we understand that it's important for our clothing line to be affordable to most, if not all, individuals.
Yes. And I'm glad you mentioned profitability, because one of the things, and especially recently, I think it has started bothering me a lot more recently, because I mentioned to Olga offline that I'm going to be doing a workshop about Etsy financials and really knowing your numbers. And the more I thought about it, the more it kind of annoyed me that a lot of times you hear from people who say, oh, just, sell on Etsy. It's just 20 cents to list an item. And yes, it's true. It's just 20 cents to list an item for 4 months. But behind that 20 cents, when you do sell your item, there are fees that you have to pay on top of the 20 cents before you actually have your profit, and not even your profit, because in addition to the fees that you pay on Etsy, there are also the cost of your goods and your raw materials and all that before you actually get to what your actual profit is. And so I'm doing a whole workshop on that, and so when people say, well, it's just 20 cents, I'm like, yeah, it's 20 cents to put your item up there, but you want to think beyond that. Like, you actually want to be making money, and so you need to understand all the other numbers that go into selling on Etsy to determine whether or not you are making a profit, whether or not you are running a business or a hobby, or whether you're paying to sell on Etsy.
You're so right. You're absolutely right. And I believe that the creative community lacks in educating themselves on the financial aspect of running a business. And I understand it from the aspect of, it's their art, it's their love, it's their design, it's what they want to put out there. But at the same time, if you are putting it on Etsy or any other platform, the idea is for you to benefit from it financially as well. And I think Etsy is okay at explaining how the financial aspect really works. But what I would recommend for anybody is the first thing to do is to calculate how much it takes for you to make your product, your item, whatever, or your service, whatever you're doing. Okay. And then go and research, if you're doing specifically on Etsy, what it actually takes to make a profit, not revenue, but to make a profit. What's revenue and what are your expenses? Your expenses are the most important part. And I think people are not as savvy into understanding or researching enough for it to make a profit. So a lot of the times they're like, oh my God, I made this amount of money, but you didn't make it because you still have to subtract all of the expenses. And unfortunately, a lot of the times, if you're not savvy in finance, and that's fine too, find somebody who can explain to you what the Etsy platform, because I know on Etsy platform, it actually takes a little bit of time to actually find the real number of like revenue. Because if you recall, if you have a return, it doesn't show up until you go into the download and you have to subtract that yourself. So not to go deep in detail into this, all I'm saying is that just because you're making a revenue doesn't mean you're making a profit.
Profit. Yes. Thank you.
Mhm.
Two very different things, often confused with each other.
Exactly.
Olga, what is your vision for Vera the Label going forward?
We are going to continue to grow, and we're going to continue to expand, and we're going to continue to experiment. Etsy has been really great platform for us, as I mentioned before, to experiment with the items that that sell really well, and who our target audience is, and what works and what doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
And if you pay attention to all the little details, and kind of go off of the major steps of setting up your shop on Etsy, I believe anybody and everybody can be successful.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's a matter of patience.
Mm-hmm.
And when we started the Etsy shop, our first sale, as I think for most people, have come from friends.
Yeah.
And that was still exciting. That was so exciting. Got our first sale.
Yeah.
Especially when on your phone it says new order, everybody gets so excited. And then when you first organic sale, that's when you have a party.
Yes.
So we're really excited for the future, and we're just we're going to expand. We want to expand our brand. We want to create new designs. We're really looking forward to our winter season. We have a lot of really great pieces coming, very unique and personable, and something that I think is timeless. And so we're super excited. We're really looking forward to creating a brand that's really inclusive to everybody. Yeah. And I think that's our goal.
Is it your desire to stay primarily an e-commerce business, or would you like to be in brick and mortar shops one day?
Good question. I think we've discussed it before, but in order for us, as I said, one step at a time with everything, and let us become a little bit more stable on our feet on the e-commerce end, and then see where it goes. And as you can see, life is, always throwing things at us, including COVID. Yes. And so that's a big hurdle for a lot of retail businesses, as I'm sure you've seen. And although we're still in pandemic, and so we're definitely we're not planning on opening anything up in the near future, but it's something that we have spoken about. For now, we're only e-commerce. This is what we know. Mm-hmm. We also don't have experience in it, in like retail. And so on the store end, physical store end. And so that's something that we would have to expand on, which means we would have to expand our team. And that's just not something that we're ready for yet. Yeah. Right now, it's all about little steps, big successes in the e-commerce end.
I think that's wise too.
Yeah.
Are there any particular tools or resources that you use either individually or as a team that just helps you run your business better?
A planner.
Physical or digital?
Both. Both. I'm completely serious. I believe in productivity and efficiency and organization. And if you do those three things within your team and individually, you are much more likely to succeed, because there are so many things that are going on. There's so many things to remember. It is impossible to get it all done just in your head. Yes. And so we have a Google Drive that we share, and we as I said, every week we have 2 meetings where we talk about what happened, what we got done, and what's going to get done. And it's a very efficient meeting. This is no like, hey, how are you doing? Let's drink some tea. This is more like, okay, no chit chat. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then get going. And so when in the Google Drive, we have a list of things that are itemized per each individual of what they need to get done.
Okay.
And I think that is key to our efficiency and success as of right now.
Yeah, and that makes perfect sense, because I would imagine with, a team of more than one, you have to be all on the same page so that you're all moving in the same direction at the same time.
Absolutely. No doubt about it.
Olga, what would you say to other clothing brands that are trying to get up and running on Etsy? What advice do you have for them, just based on what you've experienced so far?
First, I want them to not be afraid of competition. I think it's very important. A lot of people, not just clothing brands, but now that, it's anybody, it's any business.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be afraid of competition. Competition is good. Never think of competition as negative. You can always learn from your competition. We don't tend to dwell on our competition too much, because especially if you are a unique clothing brand, and if you really believe and have the intention of bringing the best in your business, you'll succeed. Now, of course, second thing is research and analyzing.
Yeah.
Do a lot of research before, figure out how to do the shop. There's a lot of great courses. There's a lot of great YouTube videos. There's some free information. Just before, being a designer is one thing, but setting up an Etsy shop is completely different.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you are more of a creative side, get a partner who is more savvy on that kind of operation, financial side.
Yeah.
If you are the opposite, then do the opposite, because I think, or if you can do both, then that's great. There's a lot that goes into Etsy. I mean, as I said, we just started in February, and there's so much more to learn, but one step at a time. And so for clothing brands, Etsy has been known more for like handmade goods and home decor and kind of like vintage clothing. But if you are a clothing brand that makes your own stuff, that's even, I think it's an advantage, because it's something new and people are going to be looking into it.
Yeah.
And so just don't be afraid. Have no fear.
Yeah.
Just be smart about it and do it step by step.
Yeah. And especially a clothing brand for adults. We've seen many kid clothing lines and brands and babies, but I think people are kind of scared to compete in the adult clothing market, because you think, well, there's so many retailers out there. Why would somebody come on Etsy to buy, a dress or a pair of pants? And that can be intimidating.
Because of you. No, they will come. A lot of my clients come because of the customer service, and we've talked about customer service.
Mm-hmm.
We come because we are really genuine and really grateful, truly, for everybody that appreciates what we do.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the times I have personal conversations with our buyers, and a lot of the times they come not just for clothes, but also for that kind of intimate relationship, because Etsy is individual, right? And so it's not a huge store. Most of the businesses are small businesses, and so they'll come for you. If you do it right, they'll come for you.
Yeah. You know what you just reminded me of, Olga? And this is kind of an aside, but something you said brought it to my mind. So I'm originally from Nigeria, and one of the common things we do, which is not done very much here in the US, is all our clothing, most people, it's made to order. And that's not because people are rich or anything. It's because it's more expensive to import ready-made clothing than it is to sew your own clothing. And what you were saying just reminded me, because I just came back, because I went home to visit. I had a bunch of things sewn, and yes, I went to, the seamstress, and, they take your own measurements, and it's sewn exactly for your body. But one of the things that you said that made me remember why it's such a good experience is just knowing that somebody has you in mind when they're making something, even if they don't know you personally, but like take your shop on Etsy. People can communicate with you. They can ask questions. They can, tell you something, even though you don't do custom orders per se, but they have some level of input into what they're getting and what you're making. And it's a different feeling because you feel like, wow, this dress or this outfit was made for me or was made to, certain specifications that I like, that they took me into consideration when they were making it, as opposed to me just picking it off a rack.
You are 100% correct. In fact, I have had conversations with buyers who had influenced us to create certain designs or at least use certain patterns. We had a buyer who bought a bunch of our blazers and she loved our blazers. She said, I could never find anything. These are amazing blazers. And so I had a conversation with her and I said, well, what do you think? Like, what else can we do? And we created a blazer based off of her comments. So even though it's not customized for her per se, although she did actually, she of course bought that blazer as well, but a lot of other people ended up buying that blazer because it was geared towards a certain amount of audience and she was the one who influenced it.
Yeah, I love it. I feel like there is room for other clothing brands, and we always hear, oh, there's, oversaturation, blah, blah, blah. But someone said something the other day that I thought was kind of wise. And they said, if there is, quote, oversaturation, there's a reason. It means there's a market. It means people are buying. So squeeze yourself in there somehow.
Absolutely. Don't be afraid that it's, you're absolutely correct. And listen, those, unfortunately or fortunately, those who are going to be on top, there's a reason why they're on top. So learn from them.
Yes.
Right. So if they're doing well, why are they doing well?
Yeah.
Don't envy them. Still be you, but see what they're doing, how you can progress, how you can make it better.
Right. Emulate, but don't imitate.
Yeah. Exactly. Oh, I like that. Yes.
Olga, do you have any Etsy shop shout outs? This can be another seller, someone who maybe you like what they're doing on Etsy or they've helped you along the way.
We are such loners right now. I'm going to be completely honest with you. We're loners because we're so concentrated on our own thing. Yes. And we're so little that we don't have time to kind of gear towards anything else. As I said, we try to be so efficient with our timing. Yeah. So I will definitely have someone for you in the near future. Yeah. I just don't have anybody right now because our concentration is totally on us and how to grow our business. Yes. As I said, we don't really check out our competition. We don't really see what other people are doing because we really want to individualize our clothing line and be on our own. So we don't want to have any influences from others as well. So I will have some in the future. I just don't have any now.
That makes perfect sense. And yes, if your nose is to the, I hope I'm saying that right. Your nose is to the grind. Sometimes I mix up but you know what I'm saying. You're focused. I know. You're focused. That makes perfect sense. No problem at all. What's the best way people can connect with you if they want to stay in touch or if they want to just check you out?
I'm always happy to chat on my messages at my shop, Vera The Label. You can always find us. You can also email me at VeraTheLabel Etsy@gmail.com.
Okay.
So more than happy to chat, to speak, to discuss. Always open to conversations.
Wonderful. So I will, of course, have links to Olga's Etsy store so you can connect with her. Go over there, check out what she's doing, and I'll have all her information in the show notes for this episode. Olga, thank you so much for educating me about what it takes to have a clothing brand on Etsy and just what it looks like to be a new, independent clothing line and growing your business. I would love to catch up in a year or so just to see how things unfolded for you, because I know right now that, almost every day must look like a new day to you. So it would be really good to see how your year one wrapped up.
Definitely. And thank you for the opportunity to speak with you. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Oh, same here. And I thank you for listening to the podcast. If you would like to connect with me, please go to convome.com. There's a contact form there. If you want to be my guest, there's also a Be My Guest page on there. You can just let me know. And if you're on social media, I'm not very active there, but on Instagram, I'm at Etsy Conversations. And I will be back with another episode next week.
Thank you for listening. You can subscribe to the podcast in iTunes, and while you're there, please leave a review too. Visit convome.com to leave a comment or feedback on this episode.